Hello, my name is Chris Brignall. I'm the Director of Natural Sciences at the University of Nottingham. So today I'm going to speak something about how we've taken a synoptic approach to learning. So how can we integrate different disciplines, research and teaching, employability skills and sustainability all into one module and course. So first of all, let's think about what is natural sciences. So it's an interdisciplinary science program. Students in their first year choose 3 out of a possible 9 different scientific subjects to study. It's a program aimed at high achieving students, so we ask for A-star AA in terms of their end of high school A-level qualifications. So these are very good students studying a wide range of scientific disciplines, unlike most students in the UK who are focusing on maybe 1 or maybe 2 subjects. And what is the Synoptic Module? Well, it's a final year compulsory module for natural science students. And the aim of the module is to address a number of the program's aims around interdisciplinarity, research, employability, and sustainability. So let's think about how this module fits in with the natural sciences program and how the student's journey evolves through their years. So in the initial years of the program, the teaching is very much focused on the teacher-led side. So they're learning in silos, so they're learning about different scientific disciplines and different modules, and they're very much consuming the knowledge that the teacher is giving them. The focus is on the models and theory. What we want them to get to is being the complete scientist, so being capable of doing independent scientific research, for example, whether it's in industry or academia, and thinking about how to communicate science and how to explain science as well. So the Synoptic module fits in the middle here. The emphasis is very much on integrating their knowledge from different scientific disciplines, using their skills to create new scientific progress, with an emphasis on the student being the active participant rather than the teacher, and all in all trying to solve problems of a global significance. So how does this module work? So the module spans a year, split over 2 semesters. And we break the module down into a series of tasks. The tasks get increasingly difficult. So we start off with writing a magazine article, then we ask them to write literature review, and then we ask them to do a research project, and then we ask them to present and reflect on what they've done in the final 2 weeks of the year. The reason for the different tasks are to build up over time different skills. So we start off by developing their writing skills and not focusing too much on the science, for example. And then we ask them to write an interdisciplinary literature review. So that builds up their integration of knowledge across different subjects. Then we ask them to develop their research skills, which is the main focus of the module, before asking them to develop their oral and reflective skills at the end. And most of the tasks are completed in groups, and they are supported by an expert who is one of the scientific researchers in that area from the university. So here are some examples of projects that our students are currently working on. You'll notice that they cover a wide range of different scientific endeavours. Some of the projects are related to medical applications and using interdisciplinary science to advance our understanding and treatment of certain diseases like diabetes. Others are connected to energy and how we create energy, store energy and deploy energy in a sustainable way. And others are to do with landscape monitoring, for example, so they have environmental applications, so thinking about how we care for and monitor the environment. So what I've just described is how the module is now, but it wasn't always like this. So if we go back a couple of years, when I first took over running this module, the module wasn't performing very well in terms of the students' perception of the module. So at the end of the module, the university ran an official survey, and the score that the module received was below the university average. So I conducted my own survey of the students to find out exactly what was going wrong. They had some complaints, which these speech bubbles tried to convey. There was misgivings about the resources that were given to them to help them on their journey. They were about too much work and it taking too much time compared to their other modules. There was dissatisfaction with the type of project topics that they were being offered, and they weren't very sure about what it was they were supposed to be doing. The tasks weren't clear, and neither were the marking criteria. There was some good feedback though. Some students liked the module overall in terms of it teaching them some useful skills that they haven't learned in other modules where perhaps it's more a traditional teaching approach. So let's have a look at some of the issues that the students raised around the projects and the experts. So first of all, one question is, well, how do we find suitable projects and willing experts? So I'm fortunate enough to work in a research-led university, so there's lots of interdisciplinary research taking place around me. So the first thing to do is to just talk to colleagues, and really I took the approach of asking, well, what can the students do to help you, the expert, in this area? So often experts are working in a very narrow area on a day-to-day basis. So perhaps having a group of students who are interdisciplinary experts can help them broaden their horizons and think more about the applications of their work to different areas, or to make use of other scientific disciplines in their work. And I set the projects up such that the expert was an expert rather than supervisor. So they're not expected to monitor the students day to day. That falls to me, but they are just there to answer the scientific questions. How broad or narrow should the projects be? So I used the UN Sustainable Development Goals as a framework for connecting the different projects and linking them together. At the start of the module, I give them very broad remits, and groups can then go off and search in their literature review for interesting avenues to explore. And then they become more narrow and more focused later on. And the emphasis here is on giving the students choice in the terms of the direction that they go in, so they can follow any leads that they think are particularly interesting. And again, another area where we give the students choice is the type of output they give from their research project. So they may do some research and write a journal article about it, or they could plan their research and write a grant proposal, or they could think about the applications of their research and write a policy document. So again, we're giving students choice such that they can give the most appropriate output for the type of project that they're working on. So the students also raised some issues in their feedback about group work and how that should be carried out. So the first question to ask is, well, how should we assign the individuals to the groups and the projects? So in previous years, we'd ask the individuals, we'd assign the individuals to groups, and then we'd let the groups choose their projects. That often ended up with some students being dissatisfied with who they were working with or the project topic that they were working on. So this time we asked the individuals for their project preferences, what sort of projects would you like to work on, and then created the groups based on these. And that seems to have had a positive impact in terms of their satisfaction. How do we teach skills? Well, we use a series of workshops through the year at key points. So workshops maybe on the themes of communication, teamwork, presenting, and so on. We put them at key points through the year where it's most appropriate and valuable to the students. Our library staff run sessions on things like searching the literature and how to do critical appraisal, so we make use of those. And we also have a team of experts at our university who focus on student academic skills, so how to write and reference and so on. So some of these things we deliver ourselves, and some of them we signpost to other experts within the university. And how do we facilitate collaboration between the students? So long before the pandemic hit, we were using online tools to already do this. So we were making use of Microsoft Teams in its early days to try and help students to collaborate, to share documents, to chat, and to the other advantage of doing this is that as a member of their team, the staff member and the expert can also monitor what they're up to remotely and intervene or help in a kind of less formal manner than just through formal supervision meetings, for example. The third area that students gave negative feedback about was marking criteria and how they were being judged. So I re-evaluated, well, how do we make the marking transparent and fair? What is it that we're actually trying to assess when we're doing these projects? So the World Economic Forum has a list of skills that individuals are going to be required to have in the future economy. And so I used those as a basis for marking criteria. And for each one of those marking criteria, I mapped it against the assessments. So which assessments were going to assess which skills. Not all the skills in the World Economic Forum's documents is appropriate, but lots of them were. So, and then for each assessment and for each skill within that assessment, we wrote some specific marking criteria, some grade descriptors. What does it mean to be excellent, good, average, or poor in each of the areas? And to kind of boost fairness, every substantial piece of work was double marked by 2 staff members to ensure some consistency. And then how do we assign the marks to individuals? So they're working in groups, they're making group submissions. So how do we accurately reflect those who, or reward those who have done the work or made the greatest contribution? Again, we've tried different things at different points over the years. The one that we've settled on at the moment, which seems to work quite well, is we ask students, while they're using Microsoft Teams, to use OneNote within that to maintain a log of their group's activities and decisions and progress. And then we've got ask each of the students at the end to write an individual reflective assessment. And through using the group log, which we can monitor throughout the year, and the individual reflective assessment at the end, we get a good idea of which students have contributed most to the final outputs from the group. So were these changes successful? So at the end of 2019-20, we again evaluated how the module was running. We couldn't do a direct comparison with the earlier percentage scores because the university didn't run the survey during the middle of the pandemic. But again, I was able to get some qualitative feedback on how the module had run. So one of the questions was how clear were the marking criteria? And again, the feedback that we got here was much more positive than it was before. Some students would have liked more feedback. Sometimes the 2 markers disagree with each other, but that's perhaps to be expected in some occasions. But generally, the marking criteria were perceived to be clear or very clear. The students were very enthusiastic about using Microsoft Teams as a collaboration tool for sharing documents and chatting about the work. The useful comments that you can see here. So after feedback is around the project's themes and how well that had worked. Again, there's perhaps some mixed feedback here. Some really enjoyed the themes, some appreciated the relevance to sustainability and sustainable development. Others thought perhaps the projects were too vague, too broad, and needed to be more precise, and perhaps didn't like or take advantage of the freedom that they were given in terms of the project's direction. And again, the feedback around workload was much more balanced than before. So lots of people thinking that the amount of work was fair or reasonable. Some still noted that it was perhaps slightly more work than other modules, but generally the feedback here was reasonably good. So where do we go next? So I was inspired by a paper by Scott Strachan at the University of Strathclyde about using vertically integrated projects to embed research-based education for sustainable development in undergraduate curricula. So the key concepts here are about it being research-based, using undergraduate research teams to support the university's research output. And the other point here is about vertically integrated. So using projects across multiple different year groups. So, for example, 2nd years and 3rd year students all collaborating on the same project. There are some advantages to this approach. New generations of students learn from their predecessors. The continuity of having multiple year groups working on the same project means that the projects have a longer lifespans than typically being constrained by university academic year. And really the emphasis here is on integrating more closely the research and teaching that happens at a research-led university. So we're making some baby steps in that direction. We're introducing a new module next year around Nottingham Futures. So again, looking at the university's research portfolio and mapping that to the city of Nottingham and the challenges that the city faces. And again, thinking about how science can be used to solve some of those problems. And that's for our 2nd year students to kind of prepare them better for the Synoptic module which follows. So these are some of the references that I referred to in the talk. Thanks very much for listening. If you do have any questions, then please just drop me an email to chris.brignall@nottingham.ac.uk. Thanks for watching.